Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is life coach and LOA teacher Joel Elston.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. So, Joel, we actually have a topic from Jen today that we've never touched before, and probably won't touch again. But we'll touch it for a minute or so here, because it's on the mind of the vast majority of people around the world. And when I mentioned it to you, you said why, and I pointed out there's a whole news thing going on. You said, oh, okay, which shows just how little you pay attention to the news, which is extremely healthy. But the fact is that there is a big thing going on because of the Trump tariffs. And so lots of concern about what's going to happen with global trade. And that's what Jen is concerned about as well. So let's spend a minute talking about why it is that we're not concerned about it. That's what we're going to do. I mean, we might as well just lay it out, out front. That's where we're going to go with it.
Well, one of the things in these situations, if somebody says, hey, if I have a client says, what is your biggest concern? They say global trade. Which hasn't happened, but let's just say that did.
That would be an unusual session, wouldn't it?
It would. And I would say, okay, so I will start with, I would take out a piece of paper and I would say, let's write down all the things we personally can control about global trade.
Yes. Well, that's going to be a short list.
Yes. So after we come up with all items that we can control, which is likely zero.
Yeah.
We would then have to surmise that there is nothing we can do about global trade. And worrying about global trade in no way helps the problem with global trade.
Now, isn't that ironic?
Yeah.
You would think that look how much effort people put into worrying. You would think it'd be really productive, right?
Worry seems necessary. It seems like it's a productive use of time and thought, when in reality, it is the exact opposite of what you need to be doing. So if something like global trade or bad, 2008 financial crisis or whatever the stuff is, your focus again, it doesn't do any good to be on what you can't control. What your focus is on what can I control. So what can I do? What am I able to look? How is global trade affecting me? What I'm concerned about. Well, is there other ways for me to have, global trade? I'm gonna go out on a limb here, is not going to affect me on any level. It may my portfolio may go down. It's short term. I know it'll go back up, but on a daily basis, I don't think it's going to affect me, on any level.
And there will be some people who will be affected, because one thing that is pretty clear is going to happen is we're going to have an inflationary pulse at some point.
Sure.
So that's going to affect some people.
You know what I love about inflationary times is, again, this is not the norm, but that's when fixed rate investment stuff makes the interest rates go up during inflation.
That's right.
I will make a lot more money on my fixed rate investment. So so it can go either way. And again, I am not trying to speak for other people. Not everybody's in that position, but simply, what can you control? How can you make more money? So I think Esther and Jerry Hicks talk about this. Jerry actually addresses this in one of the books. He said, if you're worried about the value of a dollar, that was the concern at the time.
Right.
He said, I'm not worried about the value of a dollar. I'll just attract the necessary units. It doesn't matter.
Right.
And Bob Proctor was a big believer in that. It doesn't matter what the economy is doing. It's what your personal economy, what you're internally doing. So if everybody gets focused on what is in their control. Now, I know in Jen's case, she's in another country, and that has a differing effect. So I'm not trying to minimize the attention that's getting there. But no matter what she's able to do, it isn't going to affect global trade. She can start looking for other options. She can figure out what's available online. Again, AI has amazing ways of, if you get in, literally, if you give a prompt to one of your AIs, how can the global trade benefit me? And if it goes backwards or whatever, there's going to be some solutions along the way.
Or perhaps just ask the AI, okay, global trade is coming up with a negative impact on me, so I need to deal with it. Help me figure out how I'm going to deal with this.
Exactly. And so if there is a problem with global trade, the law of supply and demand overrides anything economically. So if there's something that's needed, there will be a void filled by other ways. So other countries could, it's possible that the entire world one day says, we're really tired of you annoying Americans, and we're going to do it without you. And they
I
could
mean,
do that.
we're that's kind of the direction we're heading. It really is.
So
Yeah.
they will figure out their own stuff. Then we will have to adjust and figure it out.
Yeah.
But the idea, the biggest problem with any problem is worrying about the problem.
Yes.
Is focusing on the stuff you can't control. You have to get solution oriented. You have to get, what are we trying to accomplish? I'm not anticipating any real impact to me. And if I do, and again, I'm not trying to minimize those that will, but my perspective, like during the pandemic, I told you when it shut down, I literally told you, I don't know how, but we will be better off after the pandemic is over. I don't know how we'll do. We literally said that. You and I talked about that.
Yeah, we both did.
It turned out to be wonderful for financial reasons, for just the situation. So I understand that this is one of those examples where the news points out something and then everybody gets focused on it. So everybody's worried about something they can't control. And that's more of the problem than global trade. So we use law of attraction, but I want to use her original concept. So law of attraction and global trade, when you're looking at the negativity that's attached with global trade, then you will have a negative, it will have a negative effect. It definitely will, because the law of attraction can only pick up your worry and fear. It will deliver more worry and fear.
Right, exactly. And that ties into something else I wanted to tie in the same way. It's really about the vibration.
Yes.
And this is actually part of a larger theme that has been occurring in my conversations. I literally earlier today, now I do 2 shows on Monday. The one I do with you is the second show. Before I did the first show, I had a conversation with a close friend, and she's very spiritual. She's very much into the spiritual stuff. She's looking more at the side of spirituality where they focus on, angels and demons and fairies and witchcraft and, gemstones, all the different esoteric things that are often associated with spirituality, and trying to navigate it all, and sometimes making some gains, sometimes getting frustrated with it and so forth. And in essence, what I said to her was, my sister was very much into the same thing, still is in many ways. And at one point I had to kind of cut her off because she kept sending me all this stuff that I really didn't want to know about, because I really have no interest in it.
Right.
And my friend has often said to me, well, how do you call yourself spiritual if you're not even looking at this stuff? And my reply was, it's because I don't look at that part. To me, the whole idea of spirituality is about consciousness.
Sure.
And the whole thing boils down to one thing, which I can handle one thing a whole lot better than I can handle 35.
Right.
And that's what the other side wants me to do. They want me to handle 35 different things. I can handle one. And the one thing that I need to handle is my vibration.
Yep.
How am I feeling? That's all I have to navigate. And it makes life so much easier because that's all I have to do. So I don't have to worry about what's going on with a spirit guide or an angel card or astrology or I don't have to worry about any of that. All I have to worry about is how am I feeling?
Right. Those things you're talking about, as I've mentioned, to my belief in crystals, for example, or lack of belief in crystals, they affect her because she believes in them. She gives them the power because of her belief in them. That's why it has a bearing. It's real for her.
Yeah.
When it's not real for me, I'm like you. There's only one metric. How am I feeling?
Yes.
If I'm vibrationally low, my only goal is to move up vibrationally. That's it. If I do that, then everything else, the vibration of that solves it. It's on cruise control. You just attract it. But when you're vibrating low, that's when lack comes. That's when fear comes. When you worry about something, one of my favorite quotes is, worrying is like praying for what you don't want. It's the law of attraction. It's proof of the law of attraction, but it's the opposite way most people want to use it.
Yes, exactly. And in fact, what goes along with this is because so much of the stuff that's associated with that other side, I'm kind of treating spirituality like there's 2 camps. I mean, it's not that clear cut, but
sure,
there's the camp that we're in, and there's the other camp. And the other camp is much bigger. It's got a lot more people focused on it, a lot more programs focused on it, and so forth. Interesting parallel about that camp, though. They're presenting all these different storylines that they have more of a positive twist than you'll get from the news. But it's interesting how so often, so many of them are focused on this particular danger is coming, that particular situation we have to worry about. In that sense, it's the same thing as what the news is doing. They're pushing negative hot buttons to keep you watching and pay for the advertising. It's the same for us. Same idea.
Yeah, and when you look at the world through that negative lens, or that whatever you're painting it as, the next catastrophic event, one of my clients' father, I don't even understand. It's QAnon stuff he's into. I don't even really understand that.
I understand it, and I still don't understand it. So,
yeah, so he
just
believes,
to be fair,
he really believes that, and the date keeps changing, but on next week, the big reveal is going to take place, and the shadow government's going to come out. Everybody's getting $1 million check.
Yeah.
And this has been in the works for, in the meantime, he's not working. He's borrowing money from the family. He's not paying his bills because he believes this is coming.
Yeah.
And his daughter has been trying to help him, but she finally had to tell him the other day, I'm not going to. She goes, but honey, it's next week. And she showed him text from the last 4 years where the event is just a month away. And he'll send these supporting articles or whatever. And so the reason I'm saying that, sometimes that stuff can border on mental illness.
I think it does in many cases.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm not critical of the people you had on earlier. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about that.
Right.
You'll have that sometimes with people, because it's so, where my vibrational belief is, you and I spent years early trying to complicate this thing so much. I mean,
and we were good at it, by the way.
We were great at it. We talked every angle, and it can't be as simple as we're talking about.
That's right.
And it turns out it was simpler than we even thought.
It was even more simple. Yes.
Yeah. And so, but when you understand that, then you can look at all the other stuff and go, okay, they feel that's a necessary part. So when the media, the globe, the attention, they dictate what you're watching. And today I had one of my clients who had severe cancer. I believe it wasn't pancreatic, but it was something in that area. And 3 years, was given 5% chance of living a year, was totally free from cancer today.
Wow, that is fabulous news.
Yeah. Now that is news I like to present.
Absolutely.
Now that didn't make the news. That's not making the news. That's not, because
which is important to notice. It's very important to notice that.
Yes. So statistically, when he sat down with me years ago, and very emaciated, and said, I have less than a 5% chance of living a year, I go, well, that's a random ass number. That's what we're going to come up with that. It's just, I go, that doesn't make any sense. And so he didn't stop traditional therapy, but he also looked at some of he read Dr. Joe Dispenza's book about You Are the Placebo.
Right.
He also started eating a diet that was free of any preservatives, cut out sugar from his life. He did other things, deep meditation. His whole, one of the things I suggested that he found the most helpful, you actually, I told him that you liked this years ago. I told him to watch something that makes him laugh every day.
Oh, yeah, that's very effective.
And so he used to be a big fan of Kinison, Sam Kinison, who is wow. He was wild.
Sam Kinison is a strong dose. Let's put it that way.
But he is absurdly funny.
He's insanely funny. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not for everybody. But so he had watched comedy shows and he'd do that, and he's not only that, he's free from it. And the doctors are saying, oh, it's a miracle, all this happened. And he goes, well, he said, but you didn't give me a chance for a miracle. He said, why did you, if he said, my life coach gave me the chance of the miracle. You gave me 5% chance of living for a year. I accepted that, and I was going to behave as if that was true. But I had him eating well, getting, at the time he could walk up the stairs, and they made a bed downstairs for him and stuff. I said, we're going to start working on one step at a time, getting up the stairs. You have a bed upstairs, go upstairs to bed. And it was those kind of things that actually stopped the atrophy of everything. Things started
Wow.
strengthen and the other thing that he did, and the doctor thought this was crazy. Uh, he goes out. This is during the days that it can happen. He has a beautiful deck on the top of their house, and he gets between 30 minutes and an hour of direct sun every day. As
Oh, yeah.
sun is a healer. In fact, doctors said, well, don't do that because it can cause cancer. And he's like, I
Oh,
have a 5% chance of living. Yeah, not worried about skin cancer at this point,
I
you know?
mean, God. Oh, ugh.
so, so, so he did that, drank plenty of fluid. And my point is, he changed the narrative enough that with traditional medicine, I don't want anybody hearing this to suggest he stopped the traditional medicine. That's not
Right.
what I'm saying. He did that, but he also did an entirely natural, holistic mindset approach in conjunction with the natural medicine for him to be literally cured of this disease.
How exciting. I mean, absolutely exciting to hear that story
And so
because we
that's
need
the
that. We need those. That's the kind of news we all need. That's one of the things that I find is the most important way to get to that high vibrational state is
yeah.
hearing stories like that.
Well,
That's
hearing stories
that's
like that.
inspirational.
Well, it is, and so, but you don't see that on TV. To me,
No, you're not going to find that on TV. No.
that should be a headline
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So people, I was looking back on some of my old posts during COVID,
Hmm.
and one of my messages, and you were liking several of these back in the day. The one earlier, I wrote 493,000 people have recovered completely from COVID.
Oh, I did love that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And every week I updated that number, and it got millions and millions, because everybody was talking how people were dying,
Right.
and not, there were, I mean, 50 times more people recovering, 90 times more people recovering than were dying. Not that COVID wasn't serious. I'm just simply saying nobody was mentioning that.
Yeah. There was a website that actually tracked all the data coming out of the governments from around the world
Yes.
to find out how many people were getting sick, how many people were surviving, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And the page is still up. I actually looked at it a couple days ago
Oh, cool.
because I was kind of curious to see if it was still there. It's still there. And what it reported in its final numbers before it shut down, because I mean, it reached the point where the governments weren't putting out any more numbers
Right.
anymore, so they just kind of stopped. But it reported that there were 191,000 cases of COVID. And the number of deaths was a tiny percentage of that. I don't remember what the exact number is, but it was like, 1% or something like that.
Yeah.
Which means the overwhelming majority of those 191,000 survived.
Yeah.
And that didn't make a single newscast.
Yeah, and because early the narrative was how many people died today, the
Yeah.
overcrowding in the hospital. One of my favorite things is the ER doctor here in Richmond. He's a very good friend of mine. So he was reading, keeping up all the news, and they were bracing for all this stuff, and they were triaged. They put an entire floor to handle COVID,
Mhm.
and they did all this stuff there because he was watching the news in New York where they're running out of beds and they were making the parking lots these things, and he's like,
Right.
they never needed more than the ER,
Yeah.
yeah. And now some people did die. They were
Oh, there were
yeah.
millions of deaths.
Yeah, there were many, but most of those people, not that this matters, were immune compromised or not in good shape, had a lot of issues with. But what his point was, why aren't we saying if you aren't immune compromised, if you're not obese, and you're not having any of these other issues, stay out of the hospital. Don't come here.
Right.
Let's save it for the people. If you're elderly, let's protect them. Let's focus it instead of you must rush to the hospital and and have all these things.
Yeah. If you
happen.
got a pre-existing condition, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Let's take it seriously.
Get help.
Yeah, it did. My young clients, most of my clients at the young time, in the beginning, when we realized it wasn't really affecting young people,
Mm.
I was like, guys, go out. This is your opportunity. Go.
Right.
You're the heroes of our society right now. Go fix this and go do what they need done. And I know a lot of people launched their life during that time.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people made changes in a dramatic way. That a couple of really big things came out of it where employment was concerned. The first one was that people who worked in the broadly described service industries found that they were getting a lot of appreciation that they'd never gotten before from the broader population, but their pay wasn't increasing. They were still getting paid rotten.
Right.
And I think it was I may be wrong about the date. I think it was perhaps in September of 2023, something like that. They announced the Great Resignation.
Yeah.
It became a big news item. The Great Resignation was a whole bunch of people leaving the service industries. By then, it was hitting the statistics, so that's why they were able to identify that it was happening. And an amazing thing happened. Something that politicians have been trying for years to either oppose or favor, but no change had ever made. And that was an increase in the minimum wage. Well, the minimum wage actually hasn't changed, but the practical minimum wage for hiring somebody, if you want to get labor, it's skyrocketed.
Well, and that was, I've never been a fan of false. Here's a minimum wage you got to stick to. I'm sure there's a point to it, but raising the minimum wage never made much sense to me where you're legally doing that. But when the law of supply and demand demands it,
Exactly.
then, and that's the time these people are negotiating new stuff. I have I'm off Facebook right now because of all the political stuff. So I'm off for a while probably.
Right.
But one of the things I posted a while back was during COVID, I had a lady and her son. She was a single mom, and I forget all the details without looking at my post. But there was the concept was this young man, his mom lost her job. This is before the income stuff came in, and all the supplemental stuff and unemployment stuff came in, and so he, for the first time, went to work mowing yards, doing odd jobs, working at the grocery store to help pay rent. He paid rent. He was only like 18 at the time, but he paid their rent for him 1 month. Wow. So he was working really hard to help her out, and then started making money in pressure washing. He just realized he could do all these things that were in demand, sort of a service industry, helping people who needed errands run, all these things. So he started his own business, multiple business actually, and doing really well. So his mom, who had lost her job, I forget what that job was, decided to take her unemployment money. And at the time, there were several training programs for people that were free. And she became one of those. She's the one that became the nurse. The X-ray technician during that time, and so she got trained in making that job. Then she went on and got her. I forget the nursing. There's one's 2-year degree and one's 4-year degree, but she got the 2-year degree nursing with X-ray specialty. Then she got her 4-year degree. All this is going on. So she said, COVID started a whole chain of events in my family that we're far better off what has happened. Now, again, that story didn't ever get printed. That's what was happening, but there's the narrative. So there's always a narrative. So when I hear about all the stuff, and people say I'm accused of victim shaming or blaming or something all the time.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
And personally, Walt, how much that concerns me. But
and I also know how accurate it is too.
It's not remotely true, but I don't care.
Great, come on, guys.
Yeah. So, but when you watch this and you realize there's a divide, and the divide's getting more, and so there is the society where everything's dictated to you, that you're fed the information they want you to do, so that you behave the way they want you to behave with that. Then you're, the divide in traditional therapy, where it is the trauma, the stuck in trauma therapy. This is, people list their diagnosis on Instagram as almost a badge of honor. They name themselves, I'm borderline personality with bipolar features. It's like, that's your Instagram description. I mean, wow. And so, so you have a society, but the law of attraction side, the growth mindset side, that's us, thriving. Things are better. I mean, it can't get any better. I mean, my young people that subscribe to this, it's like, you don't have any competition now. Go do this. It's amazing out there, and they're doing fantastic with it. So the trade stuff, I know if you watch the news, and I know there's some countries are going to be affected a lot more, but they will adapt. We're not the only country to trade with. You go find other countries. Move on from us. That's fine. Teach us a lesson. That's cool.
Yeah, well, and we're going to end up paying for it too. I mean, everybody ends up paying for it. Nobody wins in a trade war.
Of course,
that's part of it. But it doesn't really matter, because What really matters is that this is actually part of a conversation I had with another friend recently, because this was a friend who had a conservative viewpoint and he was railing about the liberal viewpoint, which is what conservatives do, and then liberals do the same thing in the other direction. But
Sure.
the point is, he was railing about it, and I picked something up from what he said that I already knew. I knew it was true of the conservative mentality and the conservative philosophical viewpoint and so forth. But he really brought it out, so I kind of took advantage and said, okay, let's address this one key point. He didn't bring it up as a point saying, here's why my argument is true, but he mentioned it. The thing he mentioned is the economic concept of scarcity. And that is a cornerstone of conservative economic philosophy, that the market is there to help us navigate a world where there is a scarcity of resources, a scarcity of goods and services and so forth, because they're a limit. They come in a limited quantity. So that by definition makes them scarce. I have to admit, that was one of the things I took the longest to learn about when I was on my journey toward the spiritual side, because it takes a big leap of faith in the earliest stages to come to the conclusion that we live in the world of abundance. Now, that's exactly what gets taught by law of attraction teachers. But when you're applying it in the real world and you're used to a scarcity mindset, that's a challenge. That's a hard one to overcome. And yet, the fact of the matter is, we live in a world of abundance. The only thing that holds us back, that holds the conservatives back, that holds the liberals back, is their mindset about scarcity, but they don't see it.
When way back in the pandemic, remember the weirdness about toilet paper and paper towels?
Yes. Oh my goodness.
No idea why. So,
anybody? Well, because you would go to the grocery store and it was all gone. That's why it became a thing.
Yeah. So I have always, this is before COVID, twice a year I go to Costco and get 6 months worth of
Yeah.
And so about a week before the shutdown, that was my scheduled trip. So I had enough. I did that. So one day my neighbor texted me, I was at work, and she said, if you're out and about, she has kids. So she said, we're in trouble with toilet paper. So I got something home if you need it. Don't worry about it. I said, if I'm out, so I just put it out there. And I said, if I'm out and I see it, I'll buy it. If not, when I get home, I'll cover you guys. And so I happened to stop at this. I don't know if they have them where you're at, but Walmart has this grocery store. It's a mini version of Walmart, but a grocery store.
Right.
And so I needed to get some yogurt, and I never stopped there. But I said, well, let me get that. They had 5 pallets of toilet paper that just were delivered.
Wow, perfect timing. Love it.
I mean, it was there, and I took pictures of it. So I just texted my immediate neighbors, grabbed 5 gigantic things of toilet paper, a couple things of paper towels, and I took it and distributed to my neighbors.
Yeah.
And they're like, what did you do? And I go,
how'd you do it?
I just thought about your perception. There's an abundance of toilet. It's there. Everybody just keeps buying it. It's just, they're not, there's some people that were just hoarding because of whatever reason. Other people thought they're going to make a profit. I don't know what they're thinking.
I don't know, but
at the end of the day, it was toilet paper. I did not have bottled water would have made sense of being low on, but toilet paper, that was like, wow, and but once that got washed out, then we haven't run into that problem since.
Not really. No.
But again, when you present something as a problem, then everybody buys into a problem. And that the scarcity mindset, it sells. Both sides, by the way, not any one political party, both sides try to scare you with that type of thing. If you do this, the other side will not let you do this, or they will take this away.
And even more than that, if you follow the other side, you are being anti-patriotic.
Of course.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to push those buttons hard, right? I mean, if you're going to push the scarcity mindset, you got to push it.
And that whole thing. So, we live in a society right now where the news controls the cycle. I mean, it used to be the news cycle. I say now the news is the cycle. The news
is. Oh yeah.
They've reversed it. They're so good at it. Now, where you get your news, I read this thing in this magazine. It was talking about media. So this wasn't about the news, but when the other day, apparently, all the CNN, the CNBCs, and they were talking about Trump's refusal to release the Epstein files. That was their
Oh
main
yeah, yeah,
topic.
that was the big thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but on Fox, they were talking about Obama being, a traitor or something, or whatever that
Right.
was.
Right.
So they didn't want to talk about the one thing, so they're going to look over there. And
Sure.
so, and this article wasn't about the news; it was just about how people are led. So if you're only watching one source of news, you really believe what you're being told is accurate and is filtered for your way. So the solution is no news and just be. And most people feel that's almost impossible to not unless your job requires you to watch the news. And that could be there's certain industries like financial planners do need to watch the news just to as they're looking at what for their perspective they need to have due diligence. Like if we know this is about to happen, just warn your clients this is about to happen. But as far as the individual out there, me knowing or not knowing news doesn't change what happens.
And the way computers work today, even the financial planners don't need it. They just need a computer that filters out. Here's one particular story that's on topic that I need to look at, and I
Yeah.
will look at that topic, and I don't need to look at all the rest of it.
Yeah, and so by shutting that down, so the law of attraction and global trade or the law of attraction in politics, the law of attraction, it has a role, but not like what most people think. You're not going to change things except your vibration. So that's where most people get very frustrated with the law of attraction. They hear Walt and Joel say, it's just changing your vibration, and they don't know how to do that. They don't think we know. They don't understand what we're saying.
Or even if they do know how to do it, they don't believe it's going to make a difference because
Right.
how could that possibly bring you what you want in your life? I mean, let's be realistic here. That's the usual mindset. Let's be realistic. That's not realistic. That's pie in the sky. That's wishful thinking. That's all that is.
So last weekend I went up to Smith Mountain Lake. As you know, I'm looking for houses, and
Yes, sir.
so I don't know where I'm at up there. I found a house that I liked, and I met the realtor there, and I was hungry, and I liked it. The house is way too big for me. It's 6,000 square feet. I don't want a 6,000
6,000 square. I could just see you in a 6,000 square foot home. That just really works.
Yeah, I would live in 1,000 square feet of 6,000 square feet. So,
Right.
I love the home, and it wasn't about money. It's just I want a nice, smaller home with all the tech, the best of the best, and I want it direct waterfront with a state-of-the-art dock. So I'm looking, right? So I'm at this restaurant. I'm sitting at the bar. I don't drink, but when you're by yourself, that's the place you eat,
Mhm.
So I'm sitting there, and there's a gentleman next to me, and we're doing the normal, hey, that
What's
kind of
up?
talking.
Yeah.
So he said, where are you from? I said, the Richmond area. He goes, actually, I'm from Chesterfield, which is just south of Richmond.
Okay.
It's the Richmond area. So
Yep.
we started talking about his place on Smith Mountain Lake. And I said, yeah, I'm looking. I don't really know the area that well. And he said, well, I got my boat right out here. So why don't we go hit all the houses that are leased on this side of the lake?
Whoa,
And
nice.
so I attracted the energy attract. So we had a really good conversation, and he goes, and I just told him my name was Joel, his name was Steve, and so we were just talking, and he goes, so what do you do for a living? I said, I'm a life coach, and he goes, you are? I said, yeah, and he said, Joel. He said, Joel Elston, and I go, yeah, and he goes, this is crazy because my son who saw a local doctor, he referred you for my son. And he said, we haven't called you yet because he said, it's unlikely you'll get in because, but you should get on his waiting list. And I said, well, you took me around with a boat. So you want to meet Monday? Not, and he said, well, I can't meet Monday. He said, how about Tuesday? I said, we'll meet Tuesday. So the law of attraction, that energy. So it really helped me understand the lake. Like there's the part of the lake that I want to be in is closer to the restaurants and the stores.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Bonita, yeah.
Because if you go to the other side, it's 35 minutes to a grocery store.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And
I used to live there, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
But it was all this amazing connection because my energy was there. I was looking, and we found a couple of there's one house that's not for sale at this point that I loved. It was exactly what I was looking for. So one of the options, he said, why don't you could rent for a while, buy a piece of land, build that house on it. And I said, that's an idea. So, anyway, that's not part of the story, but the story was the connection.
Yes.
And then he said, well, this is lucky. He said, because I didn't know I was going to get an appointment with you. So I'm meeting with a kid tomorrow.
Wow.
And that's something that happened 4 hours away, 3.5 hours away from Richmond.
That's fantastic. And boy, there's another example of a really good feeling story that people need to hear so that they get a counterbalance at the very least to all the crap that they're hearing on the news cycle.
Yeah. And it's such a thing. And, I find it also ironic. One of the things I like being at Smith Mountain Lake or somewhere else around, anywhere else, is ironically, I like that nobody knows me anywhere.
Yeah, well, except for this guy, apparently.
But this time,
your reputation preceded you.
But I love Richmond, but you work with so many people so long. If I go out, I always see somebody. And here I'm just sitting there, just anonymous, which I love, and it's fantastic. So, but this is exciting that you see these connections, you see these things, and this has nothing to do with what most people think life has to do with. There's an energy vibration that we all do, and lower vibration simply attracts lower energy fields, bad results. It's a lack mindset. It's a fear mindset. It's all those things. Where higher vibration indicates abundance, more success. It's no problem.
It's not only no problem. There is one problem. It's not the problem with the energy. It's not the problem with the theory. The problem is with the way people perceive it. And I know this very well because I was one of them. The problem is it seems too damn simple. I mean, that's what you and I talked about for years. It can't be that simple.
Yeah.
It really is that simple.
Yeah.
And the simplicity of it sounds bizarre. Just focus on feeling good and good things happen. Like, what the hell?
Well, and I'm giving people a little bit of a benefit of the doubt of why this matters. Okay, why it matters is you and I know what we mean by saying it's vibration. You understand that?
Oh yeah.
But you got to believe it. You got to understand it. You can't just say, "Oh, I feel better," and I'm going to automatically have $1 million. It
doesn't work that way.
It's a sustained vibration. It is, what are you putting out to the field? And you have Abraham Hicks's 23 steps of emotional guidance hill. You have 2.
I think, yeah.
I have 4. So
I have 2. So I'm with you.
yeah. You have, just make it simple, but it's really just being able to get from one rung to the next rung to the next rung, and wherever that's at, and then don't do anything until you do that piece and you're good. Yes. So one of the things, as you know, I don't make any decision until after I have a workout. My mind is clear afterwards. So I know my highest vibrational level is after a strong workout. I'm feeling good. I'm doing my post-workout meal. That's when I make optimal decisions. So if I have a decision, I'm not going to make it until I'm in that optimal mindset. If I make it in a less than optimal mindset, then I'm destined to screw that up.
Yeah, not only screw it up, but you're also destined to start attracting things that you really didn't want in the first place.
Exactly.
And that's what people don't realize. This is the thing that is, to me, really fascinating and a little bit sad about the people in the spiritual circles who are on that other side we were talking about, the side that's concerned with, the astrology and the numerology and the angels and the spirit guides and all that stuff. Nothing wrong with any of that, but because of their intense focus on it, they get lost. They get lost on the idea of vibration. They forget it. It's not like they didn't know it existed. They know. It's not like they never heard about it. It's just that it kind of gets lost in the shuffle because they're focusing on all this other stuff. And then they find themselves either consciously or subconsciously repeating all of the scary stories they've been hearing from other people who are talking about this kind of stuff. And it just becomes a self-fulfilling negative prophecy. And then they wonder, well, why is it nothing seems to be getting better faster? It should be getting better faster. The 5D should be here any time now. I've been saying that for years now, but it hasn't shown up. Where is it? Well, how can it show up if you're constantly focusing on the negative?
Well, and very much to that narrative. When it comes to a lot of these, like the tarot cards and some of those things, again, if that's your thing, it's your thing.
It's fine.
But
Yeah.
it's fine. But when you read them and you believe it's a negative reading, then your energy is going to be tuned into a negative reading.
Yes.
So I don't even know what this card is called, but this is one of my funniest statements I've ever heard one of my young clients say. So this has been years ago. He was 13, and I might text him tomorrow and remind him of this. So we were talking. He says he asked me the question, do you believe in tarot cards? And I said, not really. In fact, no, but I'm not opposed. But they said, well, my mom was doing a reading and she gave me a reading. And he goes, I said, what cards? And he goes, I forget, but I got one of the 9 of testicles.
I didn't know that Arcana was in there.
I said, wow. I said, that's a good one, huh? And he goes, is it? I go, I didn't know there was a 9 of testicles. Now, I don't.
That is great.
I don't know what he meant. I never looked it up.
Well, what there are 4 Arcana or suits, and one of them is Pentacles, and that's probably what it was, the 9 of Pentacles.
Okay.
But
or whatever it was, something tentacled or testicles. But he in his mind had it 9 of testicles. I don't. And I said, well, I don't know what to do with that. He goes, I don't either.
There are tarot readers all over the place, blushing and laughing right now.
Yeah, but within that, it's to me, those things can be tools. Like one of the techniques I will often use is not on serious things. If me and my friend want to go have dinner somewhere, I'll flip a coin. Heads or tails. We're going here, heads or tails.
Okay.
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I just, it can't, what's wrong with that? Nothing. It doesn't mean anything. It just picks a place for me. I don't believe it has any magical power. It's just for those of you who know this, and most men out there do, asking a woman where you're going to have dinner can be at times difficult thing. Just
depending on the woman. I mean, it's not
of course,
for all women.
Of course. Yeah, I'm just personal experience. It's like, I'll go anywhere. And then it's like, okay, you choose, then I will choose. I don't know about that. So, okay, I'm done with this. So
see, I learned with my ex that when we were together, that it was better to get her to decide where to go, because if we didn't, she would have something in mind that she wanted to eat, but she wouldn't tell me what it was. So basically, I was in a guessing game trying to match the restaurant to the thing that I didn't know what it was that she wanted to have. And that could take a while. So I said, why don't we just cut to the chase? What's the restaurant you wanted to go to?
Yeah, let's start with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it worked. It worked great. And she was great about it. She really was. So,
that's a good remedy. And not everybody can get to that remedy. But, the ideas within us that, when we have a belief system that somehow there's a requirement of, the right card turning over or the right crystal or whatever, there is a downside. In my opinion, there's a downside to those, because if you get, I've seen somebody say, I got the death card today. Well, I don't know what that means. I go, well, that can't be too good either, the death card. And I don't know what goes on with that. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing from what I understand. Why would you have a death card? I'm just going on a limb saying that's not a good card. Just
one of the fascinating things for me, not just with tarot, but any of the cards. And I've actually used cards. I don't do tarot, but I have what they call an angel deck. I have an angel deck that I like. But I don't use it a whole lot. But one of the things that I love that comes out of the whole deck experience, so to speak, comes out of the Harry Potter movies. Now, for those people who know Harry Potter, there's a character called Professor Trelawney, and she's known for being the person who put forth the prophecy that drove a lot of the storylines in the books. And at one point, this isn't actually in the books, but it was portrayed in the movie. At one point, they showed Trelawney with a tarot deck, laying out a tarot deck, a tarot placement on a table. And what she's laying out on the table is essentially a description of the main climactic scene in book 6, where Dumbledore tumbles off the tower. but she's laying it out before that actually has been portrayed in the movies. And she lays the whole thing out and she says, well, that can't be right. And she scrambles the cards and starts dealing them all over again. The reason I mentioned that is there are many people who dabble in these things, who play with them, and they get a result that doesn't make any sense to them, or even worse, they don't like. And so they just figure, well, I just didn't do it right. I'm going to do it all over again. And it kind of raises the question, well, what's more important? Is it the artifact that you're using, or is it your belief about it?
Yeah.
That makes the difference.
Well,
because that really reinforces the idea that it's the belief, the belief that they're trying to reinforce by getting just the narrative to play out just right in the cards. That's really what's driving them. That's really what's making stuff happen in their life, in their experience.
Yeah, one of the things that there's a TV show, and I don't remember what TV show it was, but I remember the scene. There's a lady in the scene. She was tested. Her initial test was she was pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was like, you needed to have it verified with a doctor. And so she couldn't decide whether or not she wanted to keep the baby or not.
Mm-hmm.
That was the thing, because this whole complicated thing. And so her friend went with her to the doctor. She said, I can't. He brought the results and said, don't tell me. And so the friend took it and he said, oh, you're not pregnant. And she was sad. She goes, oh. And he goes, well, you actually gave the right answer because you are pregnant. And but when you said that you weren't pregnant, you were actually able to see how you really felt. You know what I mean? Because you really wanted it. And so he used that in a sense, of like, yeah, now that was a show. It's pretty, but the concept was, if you'd have said yes, they wouldn't have ever given that time. When she said no, that was that moment she said, well, I sort of was liking that idea, and then it led to it. And I didn't watch any more of the show, so don't know where it went. But
Right.
I thought that was a pretty clever idea. If I know when people say heads, I'll go here, tails, I'll go here. And it's like, oh, let me do it again, because it's not the answer you wanted. Don't do it again. Just go to the place you want.
Just go to the one you want. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually healthier that way, because now you're not attaching your wants to an artifact.
Exactly.
I mean, in the beginning, you were using the artifact to give you perhaps some sort of guidance of, some spiritual message coming through. But what it turns into is relying on the artifact to make decisions for you. And that's not the same thing. That's not accepting guidance. That's being directed.
Yes. And that's the difference. When you understand that, that's the big difference. So you're being directed. You think something's going to direct. The only thing, the one thing that I love about my ability to implement the law of attraction, I never know where it's going to go. I really don't. I just know that when my vibration is right, every single thing will happen to my benefit. There'll be some plot twists in there. I might not understand it along the way, but it always ends up far exceeding what my expectations were. And when you really believe that, you just wait for it to happen.
And to be fair, and because I went through this, I know exactly what this is like. To be fair, when you're in the early stages of playing the game this way, working on vibration, and then dealing with that series of experiences that comes afterward, it can be pretty overwhelming. It literally feels like my favorite description is the roller coaster. It feels like a roller coaster. And the reason I picked that phrase, some people like roller coasters. I don't. That's why I picked the phrase. I picked the words roller coaster because I don't like it. It's really uncomfortable. And that's the way this feels at this point in time. That's what I felt like. Interesting thing happens, though. The more that you do the work on yourself, the more that you stay true to the course of working on your vibration over a long period of time, the roller coaster flattens out. It becomes less traumatic. It becomes less upsetting. And it actually becomes kind of entertaining and interesting.
But I might reframe that a little bit from my perspective, and I do agree with what you're saying. It isn't that the roller coaster flattens out. It's just you understand the roller coaster. Okay,
fair enough.
The roller coaster is intended to be chaotic. It's intended to bring. If you can't ask the universe for change and say you want all this, and to be upset when some crazy stuff happens to make it happen. You can't ask for change. You want it quickly. And then like for me, when I left my job / fired from my job at Williamsville Wellness in 2012 or 13, whatever that was, uh, I was pretty good in law of attraction. So I knew instantly when that day happened, it's like, I mean, I lost a big time paying job,
Oh
but I
yeah.
also knew I've been wanting this for a while. So
Mm.
I know there's something on the other side. And you know the story, it worked
Oh
out
yeah.
far better than you possibly could imagine,
Oh my
anybody
God.
can imagine. And you know, so but it wasn't catastrophic, but it was a roller coaster. So to shift to a new life, sometimes it is traumatic. You know, it is seemingly traumatic, but it is what you're wanting. And some things have to fall apart for them to fall in place.
Yes, yes, indeed. In fact, I had another conversation with a friend recently that this topic, or at least an adjunct to this topic, came up because we were talking about the nature of trauma itself.
Yes.
And this particular person had been through some pretty severe trauma in her life. Um, and the point that I brought up to her was one that you and I hashed out. We've actually done it a few times. We touched on it about a week ago, once again. But it's the idea that it isn't so much how bad the trauma was that counts. We tend to look at things that way. Is my trauma as bad as somebody else's? Maybe theirs is worse, so I shouldn't feel so bad, or something along that line. But as you and I hashed out one time, it isn't a question of how bad your trauma is compared to somebody else. What matters is it's a trauma that's stopping you in your tracks at any level. It's the stopping in the tracks that makes it traumatic, not how
Yeah.
bad it is.
The, my statement all the time, I'm asked two questions often, and one of them is, what is the worst addiction?
Mm,
And my answer is your addiction.
your addiction, yeah,
That's your addiction. So that's the worst one. And I mean that, whatever you're addicted to, because it is stopping you. It is destroying
exactly.
your life. So your addiction is the worst one. Is it heroin? Is it gambling? No, it's your, whatever it is. It's yours is the worst one because it's stopping you. And the same concept as you're saying, you know, I have people saying, my God, you've been through so much, all the trauma you've been through. And I go, yeah, but it's not a comparison. It's
Mm,
you know, my traumas happen, and the amazing part of my traumas, they're never going to be well. One with TJ will never be a good thing, but my response to his death and the things that happened from that made me more powerful.
mm,
Now, I'll still go back and trade him being here for that power, obviously,
absolutely, of
but
course.
nonetheless, I was able to reframe that because I really believe my son would expect me to go on, and not only go on but go harder because of that. So I did what I thought he would expect me to do, and so that's, I view it that way. But you know, when people say, you know, well, you know, your trauma is worse than mine. No, your trauma is your trauma because it's making you stuck,
And it
and that.
doesn't really matter what if you actually came up with a good example, our last conversation that I used with my friend, and it really made an impact on her. The example you came up with was the kid in junior high or high school who has his first love.
Yes.
And then the first love, they get some fun time, and then she breaks up with him, and now he's heartbroken. Now, compared to what, say, an adult who's been on the face of the earth for 30, 40, 50 years and been through some really severe stuff, compared to that, it's a really minor trauma if you do the comparison thing.
Oh yeah.
But as you pointed out, from the point of view of the kid who's experiencing it, that is the worst trauma in the world.
One of the hardest things I deal with is the the middle school, early high school first love breakup.
Yeah.
It is so traumatic, and most family members said, "Fine, you'll get over it. There'll be 58 other women, whatever. Don't worry about
Mhm.
it." It doesn't matter because at
That's
that
right.
moment is all they can think about. So I
Yes.
process it with them. I walk them through it. I never tell them it'll get better because it doesn't feel like it'll get better. There is a time, obviously, I'll tell them it'll get better, but
Yeah.
I need to sit there and listen, and they need to, you know, I remember when you had your breakup and
Yeah.
things, you needed to go over it, replay it a few times. You had to do that, discuss it, try to figure it out. And one of my pieces of advice early was, you're not going to figure this out.
It was the best piece of advice you gave me. It was the
Yeah,
best piece of advice any of my wonderful advisors gave me.
yeah, it's not going to
It
make
really
any sense.
was.
Yeah, and once you can accept that, then you can learn to, you know, feel the. It was traumatic for you. It was
Mhm.
very traumatic. So the idea that it's a comparison or the one's worse or what that, your trauma and is what's keeping you stuck, and that's what's lost in you know, trauma therapy sometimes, is the therapy itself can keep people stuck,
Yeah.
and
Very
that's
true.
the because the reinforcement of it versus the, I will process it as long as we need to process. We'll talk about it as many times as you need to talk about it. You can rehash it as many times as you want, but there will be a period of time of what's next.
Yes.
What's next? But we'll get there when you're ready. But like when my young guys, and you'll sit there and one kid, he's just this little 8th grader, and he was heartbroken and just sobbing and he's like, "Can I give you a hug?" And I'm like, I'm not a big hugger, so I let him. Of course, I can't say no. Well, he snotted all over my shirt, and it was disgusting. and I probably hugged him for 7 straight minutes, just letting him
He was really hurting.
Yeah. And so he goes, then he sat down, and then he goes, thank you. That really helped. That really, really helped. And I didn't tell him I got to go change shirts right now, but
that was very good of you. Yes.
And I'm a germaphobe too. So I sat there for the rest of the sessions, like, oh, keep away. But he later, obviously, he recovered. He's doing fantastic. I don't know what I think he's a senior in high school right now. And he told his mom, he said, nothing has ever helped me more than Joel let me hug him. And he said, it felt like 35 minutes, and it was about 7, but he said it let out. And so I allowed him to be with the trauma, because there is in that moment of everything going on in the world, there is nothing more painful than his trauma at that moment.
That's exactly it. And that's why we get stuck.
Yes.
We tend to think that we get stuck because something is addictive. And you can certainly make an argument that that's true. But I think it's much more accurate to say we get stuck because we're stopped by a trauma and it seems impossible to get past it.
Well, you can't logically, especially when your whole life is built on this belief system, whether it's, someone like my son, who there was no ever a moment I thought he would die before me. There was not that didn't even, I'm aware of all possibilities, but this kid in particular, I'm like, no way. I mean, my family used to joke that nuclear holocaust, TJ and the roaches will lead us back. That's how resilient TJ was. You know what I'm saying? So it was never a possibility. So when that happened, it just broke my reality for a while.
Yeah, sure.
And it didn't even add up. And but yet nonetheless, you got to give yourself grace. You got to allow it. You got to understand it, because that is real. It keeps you stuck. The key is to process it, then not be stuck. Allow yourself to move forward, but do as much processing as you need. The idea that it never goes away, whereas my son's death will never go away, but I have a life right now. The pain of it is still there. It occupies my space at all times, but I also have an incredible life. It doesn't keep that life from happening. I'm aware of it, but I'm also when I say I accept it, I accept that happen. I also have a incredibly serious belief that him and I at some point are going to be reunited, and in energy for sure, and we'll probably be on another wild adventure together. And I believe that. I really believe that, and that's so. This is what we're talking about. So when going back to the original concept, law of attraction and economic conditions, or whatever the exact phraseology, of trade wars or whatever, the idea, when you give that credibility and you believe that's an impediment, then it's definitely an impediment. That doesn't mean there's not some adjustment along the way, but you have a lot of other ways to do things. So allow the other ways to take place and see which way that goes for you, because there's going to be a solution that you don't know.
That's exactly right. And I think that there's an important message that comes with that, which I want to hammer home before we finish up, which is, if you stay on the topic of there's this terrible global trade thing that's happening, you'll never get to the solution.
Yes.
But if you make the shift that you're talking about, that's how you get to the solution for you. Is it the solution for everybody? No, but it doesn't need to be, because you can't solve it for anybody else. You can only solve it for yourself anyway. So solve it for yourself by getting off the schneid and saying, I'm not going to worry about this global trade thing anymore. I'm just going to focus on what can I do to improve my life and improve my vibration along the way.
Yeah, and that's going back to that original concept. if you really understand, I can't control the trade situation. I can't on any level. Nobody's listening to Joel. Nobody's
Right.
listening to, anybody about it. Not listening to Jen. But where is my power? My power is the things I can control. If somehow inflation is going to go wild, I'll just make a lot more money, and I'll
Mhm.
figure out how to do that. I mean, my model, I might have to change my model, but I've always been able to adjust. So I have zero doubt the abundance will exist no matter what. So you're looking at abundance in a different way.
Yeah.
Abundance is what we're looking at, not the other stuff. Abundance doesn't need a dollar. It doesn't need a yen, or abundance is a mindset.
Exactly right. That's the perfect way to summarize the conversation. So, my friend, thank you once again. I think we hit it out of the park or threw the touchdown or whichever metaphor we're going to use.
Football season's right around the corner, Walt. I know you're excited.
I love it. I love it. So, thank you very much. Thank you, podcast listeners everywhere. And we will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.